We are headed to Death Valley, California. But our first stop was the Musical Road located on Avenue G in Lancaster, right off of Highway 14. Originally designed and constructed by Honda as part of an advertising campaign. The Musical Road became the first road of its kind in the United States. It was designed to replicate the finale of the William Tell Overture. How it works is they put some grooves in the road, and when you drive over it, you get this. It sounded like the Long Ranger to me, but in a very flat tone. Next we hit Ballarat Ghost Town just outside of Death Valley National Park, hoping to find a camping spot for the night. It's located in Inyo County, just off of Highway 178. Its elevation is 1,079 feet. Today, Ballarat is a virtual ghost town. It was founded in 1897 as a supply point for the mines in the canyons of the Panamint Range. A quarter-mile to the south is Post Office Springs, a reliable water source used since the 1850s. George Riggins, an immigrant from Australia, gave Ballarat its name when he proposed it should be named for Ballarat, Victoria, in Australia. The trading post you see here was really the only intact building, and inside was a little bit of artifacts like a museum. And no electricity and nobody there. In fact, there was an ice chest or cooler with a sign that said soda $1.50. Kind of strange. But scattered about the trading post is all kinds of rusty gold. The other only intact structure there was the jail/morgue. So we did a little quick tour inside of there, and I'm not sure what side was the morgue and what side was the jail, but it was very interesting. Next to the morgue/jail was a grave of Dusty Dan, which states he survived by 3 wives, 5 offspring, a burro, and 1 dog. Legend has it that this truck was once owned by Charles Manson, and it was used to get him to Barker Ranch, which is located just 20 miles south of Ballarat. Of the 3 structures in Ballarat, this one, which was partial structure, it didn't give a designation what it was, but I'm sure glad they keep that chain and padlock on the door so no one can get inside. As the sun was starting to get low in the horizon, we headed back to Highway 178, traveling north, to find some dispersed camping. We found a great spot. Ryan quickly started rebuilding that fire ring, and we settled in for the night. This campsite is located about 3 miles before the entrance of Death Valley. And how convenient that all this BLM land is always at the entrances or exits of the national parks. It makes it so convenient to camp free and just be away from people. It's awesome. If you've watched my previous videos, you know exactly what we cooked on this campfire for dinner, and it was just as yummy as all the previous trips. In the morning, we got up and Ryan started making breakfast, and I decided to take a little hike around the area to see what I could find. Looking closely at the ground, it's quite strange with these little rocks everywhere and the dried up sand. It was pretty cool. I found an old can and some old fire rings that have filled up over the years. And if you look close, there are flowers in and around Death Valley. It's pretty amazing and beautiful. I returned to camp just in time for one of Ryan's amazing breakfasts. So yummy. Nothing like breakfast when you're camping. You just can't beat it. We packed up, said our farewells to Nadeau National Recreation Area, and headed to Death Valley. Once we reached the Death Valley entrance sign, we still had a ways to go. We had to get up and over the Panamint mountain range to enter Death Valley. The Panamint mountain range is what you see straight ahead. That's what we got across. Death Valley is one of the largest national parks. It covers over 3,000 square miles. So far, we visited Ballarat Ghost Town. We camped out at Nadeau Recreational Area, and now we're heading to Stovepipe Wells. Stovepipe Wells is considered the center of Death Valley and has gas station, fuel, all kind of amenities there. It's actually the only place for that. After a quick stop in Stovepipe Wells to top off fuel, stop at the ranger station to get our park pass, we headed off to our first tourist spot, which is the Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes. The sand dunes are nearly surrounded by mountains on all sides. Due to their easy access from the road and the overall proximity to Death Valley to Hollywood, these dunes have been used to film sand dune scenes for several movies, including the Star Wars series. As an annual pass holder, we didn't have to stop to get our paper pass for the park, but the rangers recommended as your plastic credit card annual pass for the national parks do melt if left on the dashboard of your vehicle here in Death Valley. Also, it's a good reason to exchange your annual pass for your cardboard sign to keep people from breaking into your vehicle and stealing your annual pass. I'm glad we chose the time we did to visit Death Valley because in the spring, there's a lot of flowers. It's amazing. Death Valley, flowers, it doesn't go together, right? To give you an idea of the visitors, here's the parking lot pullout to visit the sand dunes. Crazy. The next stop was Salt Creek Trail. Now, this was the only place that we saw water. It's an easy hike. It should take about 30 minutes round trip. It's about a half-mile long. It's on a boardwalk, which is really cool, and it's open year-round. However, water only flows down the boardwalk from November through May. The best time to visit is during the spring, February through April, when the Salt Creek pupfish are in spawn. Pickleweed plants grow along the banks, thirstily sucking up the life-bringing water. Birds can be seen in the showers, and there are flowers all over the place. Perhaps the most exciting of all is the return of the Salt Creek pupfish, small blue fish which dart around in and out of underwater vegetation. The Salt Creek pupfish are specifically adapted to the unique habitat of the Salt Creek and can tolerate salt concentrations several times that of the seawater. They take advantage of the cooler winter months to spawn, then as summer approaches must retreat up the creek towards its spring-fed source to avoid perishing in the drying pools. Pupfish earn their name from the lively behavior they display during spawning, which some people liken to playful puppies. The boardwalk was pretty awesome to walk on. The river went underneath and sometimes crisscrossed many times along this half-mile trail. But again, the best part was watching the pupfish at play. They were pretty cool. course, I had to taste this water to see how salty it was, and boy was it. I don't know how anything could live drinking it, including this guy we saw. This lizard was pretty camouflaged to the surrounding area. It was pretty awesome. You may be asking yourself, where'd the river go? Well, it's actually right under the boardwalk. All along the road is just these flowers, so I had to stop and take pictures because your brain just doesn't work how hot it was in the low 90s, and these flowers with no water around, just gorgeous. Just a few miles away from Salt Creek was the Harmony Borax Works. It was the central feature in the opening of Death Valley and the subsequent popularity of the Furnace Creek area. After borax was found near Furnace Creek Ranch, then called Greenland, in 1881, William Coleman built the Harmony plant and began to process ore in late 1883. When in full operation, it employed 40 men who produced 3 tons of borax daily. Getting the finished product to market from the heart of Death Valley was a difficult task, and an efficient method had to be devised. The Harmony operation became famous through the use of the large mule teams and double wagons which hauled the borax along overland route to Mojave. The image of the 20 mule team persists to this day and has become the symbol of the borax industry. Once we got home, I called my friend, the L Factor, and asked if she heard of it. She promptly sent me a photo of her box. The Harmony plant went out of operation in 1888 after only 5 years of production, when Coleman's financial empire collapsed. Acquired by Francis Smith, the works never resumed the boiling of the cotton ball borat ore, and in time became part of the Borax Reserve of the Pacific Coast Borax Company and its successor. On December 31st, 1974, the site was placed on the National Registry of Historical Places. From a distance, the plant looked like a steam engine that was buried inside of a hill. I didn't see any tracks leading up to it, so it definitely was permanent. To refine the borax for transport, I think they fired up that steam engine and boiled it up. And if you look around, all the hills had a green-yellow tint to it. I'm sure that is the borax they were mining out of the area. It seems like a lot of work to build this infrastructure for just a short period, especially in that day and age when everything had to come by wagon. Crazy, just crazy. Just down the hill from the processing plant were 3 partial adobe structures. There were no signage or anything to identify what they were, but I'm assuming it might have been where they housed the workers, or possibly part of the barns for the 20 mule team. Like I said, no signage, had no idea. From here we entered Furnace Creek. It's about 24 miles from Stovepipe Wells, and they had 1 unmanned gas station, and regular was over $8 a gallon. There was a little market located inside a resort, and it was kind of tricky to find. Now we entered Devil's Golf Course. Okay, leave your balls and clubs at home because there ain't no golfing here, guys. But it was a sight to see. This is all salt, hollow rock stuff. It was pretty crazy. And it went on for as far as you can see. It totally reminded me of coral, and it was super sharp like coral, and it was dangerous actually to walk around there. There were a lot of signs posted. When I said hollow rock thingy, check out the sounds it makes when you tap on it. And here we are at the lowest point, Badwater Basin. It's 282 feet below sea level, and from the pullout above looking down, it looked like snow. Amazing. The salt flats here cover nearly 200 square miles and are composed mostly of sodium chloride, table salt, along with calcite, gypsum, and borax. Stories suggest that Badwater Basin earned its name when a mule belonging to an early surveyor refused to drink from the spring-fed pool. However, the water here is not truly bad, just very salty. Despite its high salinity, many organisms not only survive but thrive here. The pool is home to an endemic snail naturally found only at this location, and its rim is dotted with salt-tolerant plants, including pickleweed. The best views of the salt polygons require an easy 2-mile round-trip walk out into the salt flats. It's an easy walk, but in 94-degree weather, make sure you bring lots of water. Badwater Basin was once the site of the large, ancient inland Lake Manly, which evaporated tens of thousands of years before the arrival of the 1849ers, for whom it was named. Behind the pull-out parking lot and up the Black Mountains, you will see a sign above indicating sea level. There's a sign that says sea level, and this is where we are. Way down there. California contains both the highest, Mount Whitney, with an elevation of 14,505 feet, and the lowest, Badwater Basin, minus 282 feet, of the lower 48 states. They are less than 88 miles apart. Our next stop was Natural Bridge. It's about a 1.5-mile drive on the dirt road to reach the trailhead to Natural Bridge. It's about a 1.5-mile round trip to reach the Natural Bridge. And we opted to have lunch and enjoy the panoramic views of the valley below. Death Valley National Park is noted as the hottest, driest, and lowest point in North America. But they failed to mention the beauty of the mountains, the colors, and all the flowers. Artist Drive is a 9-mile, one-way paved road taking you into a deep canyon cut in the Black Mountains. Artist Palette is an area on the face of the Black Mountains noted for a variety of rock colors. These colors are caused by the oxidation of different metals. For example, iron compounds produce red, pink, and yellow. Decomposition of tuff-derived mica produces green, and manganese produces purple. The Miocene-age formation is made up of cemented gravel, playa deposits, and volcanic debris, perhaps 5,000 feet thick. Chemical weathering and hydrothermal alteration cause the oxidation and other chemical reactions that produce the variety of colors displayed in the Artistic Drive Formation and nearby exposures of the Furnace Creek Formation. With Artist Road in our rearview mirror, we head to Golden Canyon. Golden Canyon is a gradual uphill hike through a rocky corridor of towering golden walls. Minor rock scrambling is necessary to complete the entire route as you climb over ledges and duck under low overhangs. According to the trailhead map, you can hike in up to 6 miles. That just seemed a little far for all the other things we wanted to see for the day. We made it to the first scramble, and in 94-degree weather, it was a little too warm to climb over those hot rocks. So we headed back, and the view coming out of the canyon was absolutely spectacular. Our next stop is Zabriskie Point. It is noted for its erosional landscape. It is composed of sediments from Furnace Creek Lake, which dried up 5 million years ago, long before Death Valley came into existence. You park in the parking lot and you have to hike quite a ways up a hill, but the view on top, amazing. The location was named after Kristen Zabriskie, Vice President and General Manager of the Pacific Coast Borax Company in the early 20th century. Millions of years prior to the actual sinking and widening of Death Valley and the existence of Lake Manly, another lake covered a large portion of Death Valley, including the area around Zabriskie Point. The ancient lake began forming approximately 9 million years ago. During several million years of the lake's existence, sediments were collecting at the bottom in the form of saline muds, gravels from nearby mountains, and ashfall from the then active Black Mountain volcanic field. The primary source of borat minerals gathered from Death Valley's playas is in the Furnace Creek Formation. The formation is made up of over 5,000 feet of mudstone, siltstone, and conglomerate. The borats were concentrated in these lake beds from hot spring waters and altered from nearby volcanic fields. A couple miles past Zabriskie Point is 20 Mule Canyon. This is a one-way dirt road that's about 2.5 miles long. It loops you right back to the highway. Many scenes from Star Wars Return of the Jedi were filmed here. Do you recognize the landscape around Jabba the Hutt's palace? The 20 Mule team would transport the borax through this canyon. Our last stop of this very long day is Dante's View. Towering 5,575 feet above Badwater Basin on the ridge of the Black Mountain. Dante's View is directly above Badwater Basin, where we were earlier in the day. And it's also the mountain where the sea level sign was on. Dante's View is a favorite spot for photographers, especially at sunrise and sunset. Zooming in, you can see Badwater Basin, which looked like snow when we were down earlier, and see the path going out to where the lake once was. Pretty amazing. And that's where you would see the salt polygons. Dante's View was used in the original Star Wars film, where the characters overlooked Tatooine. Kind of crazy, isn't it? So at Badwater Basin, it was 94 degrees. Up here at Dante's View, 67. It was nice. We headed back to Furnace Creek and found a camp spot at Texas Spring Campgrounds. It was $16 for the night. They had flush toilets, kitchen cleanup area, and trash receptacles. We settled in and started cooking our famous baked potatoes, and Ryan brought steak. Woohoo! What a treat! Cowboy baked potatoes on the fire and steak on the fire. There's nothing like it on the planet. I was quite surprised of the tourists visiting Death Valley, as April is when it starts to get hot or hotter. We experienced 94 degrees during the day. We were lucky to get a spot before sunset as the people just kept coming into the campgrounds. Crazy. Here's a quick recap. We left camp at Nadeau Recreational Area, drove 35 miles over the Panamint Mountains to Stovepipe Wells. Our first stop was Mesquite Sand Dunes, then a short hike to Salt Creek. Next was Harmony Borax Works, then we passed through Furnace Creek and on to Devil's Golf Course. Then on to Badwater Basin. We stopped for lunch at the Natural Bridge, took a scenic drive on Artist Drive. Next was Golden Canyon, then back to the 190 to Zabriskie Point, and then our scenic drive through 20 Mule Canyon, and then to Dante's Viewpoint. And our final stop for the day, Texas Spring Campground. All of this is so close together, it made it really convenient. Just for your information, there are many campgrounds in the Furnace Creek area, and 2 resorts there as well. The Inn at Death Valley, which looked very upscale, and the Ranch at Death Valley. You can enter Death Valley from the west side from either Baker, California, or even Las Vegas. There's no reason not to come and view this most amazing area. So this trip we're concentrating on the southern half of Death Valley, but our next trip will be to explore the northern part of Death Valley, which requires a lot of off-road and 4x4 only trails. Texas Springs Campground was pretty doggone cool. I can guarantee you when we go back to do the north side of Death Valley, this will probably be our beginning point. Get up in the morning and head north, because the amenities, the location, everything, being secluded within the bushes for the tent camping area was pretty awesome. As I started to map out the days, locations, and places to visit, Ryan got busy making some breakfast, and we loaded up and headed out. Death Valley became a place of legend for people traveling westward. There are over 18,000 mining features, including structures such as aerial tramway towers and terminals throughout the valley. Our first stop was the Kean Wonder Mine. Claims were staked in December of 1903, and by 1907, the Wonder Mine was in full operation. Seeing signs like this on my travels gets me a little excited. During the Death Valley mining boom in the early 1900s, neighboring mines competed to pull as much gold out of the ground as possible. This boom slowed as a result of Panic of 1907 and paused when the area was designated as a national monument by President Herbert Hoover. Ooh, another fascinating sign. Mining in the valley did not stop completely until an increasing series of government interventions eventually resulted in Death Valley's 1994 designation as a national park. The last active mine in Death Valley closed in 2005. This looks like a remnant of an old ore bucket. By the way, they transported 70 tons of gold ore a day during peak production. The Wonder Mine operated until 1916, when it would finally close for good, approximately 10 years after its first production. This long run would make the mine one of Death Valley's longest running and most successful mines, pulling an estimated $1 million of gold out of the ground. In the early 1900s, keep in mind, gold was only $20 an ounce. From 2008 to 2017, the area was closed for structural stabilization and mine mitigation and soil sampling. Stabilization work was done on several aerial tramway towers and the upper and lower tram terminals. This work included replacing key structural pieces that were rotting, cracked, or otherwise failing. Over 50 mine openings were covered up at that time. The preserved structures at the Wonder Mine inspire me to imagine the miners who walked these same trails in a series of different value in the landscape. Back in the day, when there was just mules and horses to haul this equipment up here and make this mine successful. Here's an old photo of what the mine looked like in its heyday. Hey Ryan, why don't you drink some water? Good job. Hey, that looks like a safe. Visiting the park today, we can treasure the unique and varied ecosystems, a rich and diverse human cultural history, and all the extremes that continue to push all of us towards different types of exploration and wonder. So today we travel from the west side of Death Valley to the east. As we leave Texas Springs Campground in the Furnace Creek area, we head up to the Kean Wonder Mine, then we head completely across to the east side to the Eureka Mine, and then off to the charcoal kilns. The southwest side of Death Valley seems to have much more, flowers and bushes and trees, and the roads are more hilly and windy, and it's a big change from those salt flats and flat area. We finally reach the Eureka Mine dirt road turnoff, and we head down about 2 miles. There is a Y in the road with no signs. Since we could see some structures, we figured let's veer right. Good choice, because ended up taking us right to the Eureka Mine. Keep in mind though, veer to the right. Reading the information sign at the car park, we got very excited. It described that you could actually go into the mine, except for during the bat season, when it's blocked off as a bat conservation area. So we grabbed our flashlights and ran to the mine opening, only to find out it was sealed. But there were slats in the metal framed door they put up, so we did get a chance to peek inside. And the cool air blowing out was amazing. I'm sure that's how they survived in the desert heat. We were pretty disappointed we couldn't hike into the mine, but it was still fascinating seeing the ore car tracks leading out of the mine, and which led to what I think is a back of a dump truck at one point, where they put the gold ore in and take it to the top of the hill where they had the crusher. The Eureka Mine and the Casher Mill were founded by Pete Auguberry and Shorty Harris in 1905. Pete and Shorty established the mining town of Harrisburg, where they managed an operation involving 300 men extracting gold valued as much as $500 a ton. This could have been one of their cabins. The Casher Mill was built in 1909 and utilized gas power to extract gold from the ore hauled from the Eureka Mine, first pulverizing the ore, then using mercury and cyanide to extract the gold. Gold from the Eureka Mine sustained Pete for over 40 years. Historians estimated that Pete extracted about $175,000 worth of gold, then valued at $20 per ounce, from Providence Ridge until his health began to fail in early 1930. Pete died on November 23, 1945. Scanning the mountains in the surrounding area, you can see little holes in the mountains. This place was filled with different mines. Pete was born in 1874 in France and had a childhood dream of discovering gold in California. In pursuit of that dream, he sailed to America in 1902 and made it to Death Valley in 1905. As we entered the area, we saw these structures, if you remember. One can assume that might be the town of Harrisburg. The structures looked a little bit more modern, and we decided not to hike over to them. There was no road to get there. We left Eureka Mine and headed back to the highway to head south to the charcoal kilns. There was a really cool pullout on the top of the ridge where we got out to see the whole valley. It's pretty amazing and beautiful. Meeko was complaining he hasn't got enough airtime, so here's a few shots of good old Meeko. And there are flowers everywhere. You just have to look. Once we reached Wildrose Campground, the asphalt road turned into dirt for another 6 miles as we headed to the charcoal kilns. I have to say, we didn't expect this. As we came around the bend, there they were, all lined up. So far away from anything. It was crazy. The charcoal kiln complex in Wildrose Canyon is among the more remarkable historical architectural features in Death Valley National Park. These 10 beehive-shaped masonry structures, about 25 feet high, are believed to be the best-known surviving examples of such kilns to be found in the western states. The kilns were completed in 1877 by the Murdoch Consolidated Mining Company to provide a source of fuel sustainable for use in 2 smelters adjacent to their group of lead-silver mines in the Argus Range west of Panamint Valley, about 25 miles away from the kilns. Although the mines were worked intermittently until about 1900, there's no clear evidence that the charcoal kilns operated after 1879. Evidently, either fuel sources were located or it was found to be more profitable to ship the raw ore elsewhere for processing. This short productive life may help to explain the remarkable good condition of these kilns more than 100 years after their construction. Charcoal was transported to the smelters by mule pack trains, though wagons were also probably involved. Hey, let's go inside of one. Cool is this? Ooh, hello, hello! Charcoal is a black porous form of carbon prepared by charring wood organic matter in a kiln or retort from which air is excluded. Charcoal produced from the wood retains its basic shape and texture, but it's converted to a 96% pure carbon content. In the 19th century and earlier, charcoal was used for a furnace fuel because it burned more slowly than wood and created a much greater heat that was needed for the refining of the ores. The Skidoo pipeline ran from Birch Springs in Gel Canyon to the mill site 23 miles away. It was completed in 1907 at a cost of $250,000. Moving on, we left the Wildrose charcoal kilns and headed and drove through Panamint City, which is on the west side of Death Valley, southern, to Father Crowley's Lookout, and then to another ghost town called Darwin. The Father Crowley Lookout is located near the western Death Valley Park boundary. This vista point offers a stunning view into Rainbow Canyon. In recent years, Rainbow Canyon was nicknamed Star Wars Canyon by visitors who came to observe and photograph the military test flights which occurred in the vicinity. Star Wars Canyon is part of the R-2508 complex, which has been used by the military since 1930s. Out in the distance there, you get a great view of the Panamint Valley, much the way Father Crowley did almost 100 years ago. I'm not sure why they designate Darwin as a ghost town. According to the sign, there's a population of 50. But it is a very old-looking town, and it's definitely got a lot of mining going on because a lot of the roads are private roads and are not accessible to visitors. The town is named after Darwin French, who was a prospector in the area during the fall of 1850. French also led a party into Death Valley in 1860 to search for the mythical gunsight lode via the local wash, lending his first name to the Wash Canyon and the future town. Silver and lead discovery at the place led to the founding of a settlement in 1874. A post office opened in 1875 and remains open today. The town prospered when the toll road opened in 1926, opening Death Valley from the west. When Death Valley became a national monument in 1933, it was decided to buy the toll road and to allow free access to the new park. In 1937, a new cutoff bypassed Darwin, isolating the town. I think that local mining operations hire birds to keep track of visitors. The town was the subject of a 2011 documentary film titled Darwin. After a quick tour of Darwin, we left the town and found this cool place called Fossil Falls for our last night of camping. Fossil Falls is a unique geological feature located in the Coso Range of California. Volcanic activity in the mountain range, along with meltwater from glaciers in the nearby Sierra Nevada, played a role in the creation of the falls. During the last ice age, glaciers formed in the Sierra Nevada. Meltwater from the glaciers pooled into large lakes, including Owens Lake and the Owens River. The river traveled through Indian Wells Valley, and its course was diverted several times by volcanic activity. The flows occurred between 400 years ago and 10,000 years ago. During the period, the glacial flows would run through Fossil Falls and smooth the basalt. The erosion found at Fossil Falls was formed by the youngest glacier runoff called the Tioga from the Sierra Nevada mountain range about 20,000 years ago. This adventure through the southern half of Death Valley was absolutely amazing. I had no idea there was so much to see. I'm looking forward to visiting the northern part of Death Valley, hopefully in the fall when the temperatures get cooler. These time-lapse videos of the night sky do not give it justice. When you're out there, it is so bright and amazing. You know, time is a funny thing. If you blink, you're 30 years older. I recommend everybody take the time and get out there and enjoy it. Buy a tent. We visited all these places in 4 days. I've had a lot of questions. How do you keep your food and all this? Well, here you go. We have a refrigerator freezer in the back seat. Next to that, we have what we call the kitchen box with all the kitchen utensils and dry food. And next to that, we have our cooler, our ice chest. The battery pack keeps the refrigerator freezer running all night. Everything else we charge in the back of the truck while we're driving. Love you, Mom.